Welcome to Shorty SuperCoach, and today we're going to be having a look at the North Melbourne Football Club as we close in on the 2016 SuperCoach season. The release of SuperCoach is just about a week away, which is quite exciting. So we're going to run through North Melbourne as the next instalment to Shorty's Shortlist. And I must say off the top, I can pretty confidently say there won't be one North Melbourne player in my starting SuperCoach squad, and it's nothing against the Roos, but having looked through, it doesn't really seem like they're offering a great deal, at least not initially. I'm sure you're all yelling at me going, what about Todd Goldstein? But in my personal opinion, which we'll look into closer as we narrow in and really focus on positional stuff, I think he's just far too expensive, and there's some pretty good ruck options at the moment. Goldstein's the obvious one. Higgins was impressive, but I still don't fully trust him. And North Melbourne are a quality side now. They keep winning some finals and that. It's still tough for me to get a gauge on how good they are, but as a top four side, at least finishing top four by the end of the September, you expect a bit to offer from those sort of quality sides, but they're quite a consistent overall team. I mean, you think, where's their gun midfielder at? Well, Andrew Swallow, Ben Cunnington, Jack Zeeble, who we'll look at in a sec, all very consistent. Del Santo, probably past his absolute best. I would have liked to see him maybe get a defensive status, but probably didn't quite play that halfback role enough. So look, they don't have any absolute standouts. Their forward line's quite tall, and then you've got the likes of Lindsay Thomas, and then they've got an underbelly of youngsters, and out of the back line they don't have an absolute clear halfback flanker getting the ball, which we'll have a look at as well. But we'll start with Jack Zeeble, and he's a bit of a mystery as far as I'm concerned. Number 9 pick in 2008, and gets talked about as future captain, future leader, hardball king, absolute gun player. But it doesn't translate into scoring points, which is really interesting. He peaked at 2013 with 95.2, 83.6 in a 14, and last year 86.7 off the 21 games. That's obviously just the season, not the finals. If you take out the, I think he scored 4 points in round 3, where he had some sort of strange injury. He was off to hospital for scans and things after a heavy knock. Played 9% of the game, and then he only played about 70% of the game after coming off late in round 23. Again, probably more precautionary because of the finals ahead. If you take those 2 games out, where he scored 68 and 4, he averages 92, which isn't quite enough really. But he's a very interesting prospect because I feel he could explode at some point. He's got all the credentials to do it. I mean, he just doesn't find enough of the ball. He averages 19.4 touches. That's the number total, but 10 contested, 5 clearances, 5.6 tackles. He has no trouble doing the tough stuff at all, and that's what's really interesting, because that's it. That's the tough part, if you know what I mean. I mean, it's tough enough to win your own footy. He just needs to find more of it outside. He kicked 15 goals, 16. Not overly accurate, but it does show that he pushed forward and was more than capable of taking a mark and moving forward. And he was that sort of go-to player for the Roos to push forward and be that sort of real medium, tall, midfield, resting forward sort of player. Why do I think he could probably explode? Because he's got all the makings of an absolute gun. I think if he can just get a full season together, no head knocks, no injuries, no suspensions. The time on ground's an interesting one. Last 2 seasons he's averaged 73% time on ground. If you compare that to another battering ram in Joel Selwood, not putting them in the same category, but they play a similar game, Selwood's on the ground for an average of 83% the last 2 seasons. So whatever that reason is, obviously it's a little bit to do with the fact that Zeeble's had some really games where he's been off quite early. But there's no doubt he maybe doesn't have the engine as some other players. I'm not too sure whether he needs to work on that, but that was interesting to note looking through the numbers. But whether you're going to pick him in SuperCoach or not, you'd be pretty brave sort of guy, because he 86 sort of average. He floats in that somewhat awkward price range, and he hasn't really shown any absolute signs to explode. So it's more of a gut feeling, and I think there is potential there. So maybe more of a SuperCoach draft sort of prospect. Scotty Thompson down in defence, bit of a random one, but obviously in 2013 he averaged 98.2. Then he's gone 78 and then 73. So if you've got a bit of faith in Scotty, playing that more so intercepting type play, which he did so well back in the day. Because the Roos, as I said off the top, are hard to get a gauge on how that back line really works. They've got Hansen, they've got Tippett down there as well. They've got quite a few tall options. So he often plays a more defensive role, but if he does play offensive, he's a great interceptor. Again, I wouldn't advise picking him, but he's someone that caught my eye. I'll take a look at a couple of young guys. Luke McDonald, Sean Attlee. Plenty of promise from these blokes, but very different prospects as well. Attlee has shown absolute flashes of brilliance without really producing. 73.1 is the best he's done SuperCoach-wise in 2013. Number 17 pick back in 2010, 23 years old, 109 games. He only averaged 66.1 last year, so about 360k price. But you hear a lot of talk out of North Melbourne fans that he's the next gun. He's got so much talent, so much pace. We haven't consistently seen it. So if you're an Attlee believer, you might be tempted, but I certainly won't be tempted because after 109 games, he still hasn't strung it together. That's concerning for me. Luke McDonald hasn't had as much time in the game. By his own admission, he was very disappointed with 2015. Only played the 14 games. He was dropped mid-year, played quite a bit of VFL footy. He was injured pre-season, so didn't have a great run of it, and perhaps the after effects of a very big and arduous first season where he played a lot of the games. But he's a lovely kick. I think he's got plenty of talent. Is that halfback role an option he's going to play this year? I think it definitely is down the track. So if he finds his role, he could be a tempting option again. 284k, I think it's just too awkward to really put your money in unless you see a heap of signs through NAB Challenge. Again, I'm trying to give you some options from North, but not enough has stood out for me so far. Daniel Wells, you wouldn't go near him, would you, surely? He's played 7 games, 2 games the last 2 years. He's proved to be a SuperCoach tease in the past. I hope he can get back on the field to some extent, but injuries have surely absolutely ruled him out of ever being in fantasy contention because he's let us down many times. Jed Anderson is one, made the cross from Hawthorn. He's had his troubles as well. Had pneumonia in 2014, which really wrecked his season because he was travelling along reasonably well from memory. He did leave the Hawks for opportunity, so we'll be looking to get that at North Melbourne. And you'd think that in a quality side with a lot of inside midfielders, as I mentioned before, he could be the beneficiary of some of those real contested ball winners because he likes to play outside. That's not saying he's not a tough inside player, but predominantly he wins more outside footy. He is quite a good tackler, I must say, but I think he's probably the sort of player you'd be looking to, get out in some space, work it out, at least at this stage until he really matures. Sam Durden provoked a little bit of thought late last year, or early last year I should say, because he was that potential ruck draftee. I think he was ruck forward, was in a few people's teams thinking he might get a few games. He didn't. He was knocking on the door though, but 123k, you can only get him in the defence, but might tempt a few people I think. But look, that's about all I can scrounge up for North Melbourne. It's disappointing that they don't have a stack of options, to be honest. As I mentioned, Todd Goldstein, he'll be a guy I'm looking can drop in price and then you'll pounce on. Brent Harvey, perhaps yesterday's hero as far as SuperCoach. He's been so good for us for a long time, but is he probably past his peak? Higgins is one you definitely consider. But as I said, they've got a very even midfield who all seem to average around that 90 to 100 mark, but we need more than that in the midfield. So guys like Trent Dumont as well, Taylor Garner, a few younger players that, as that underbelly that I mentioned, who might look for more opportunity. But again, their points and games played just puts them in an awkward range. So I'm going to find it hard to find anyone lining up in Shorty Superstars in that first round one team, but down the track there'll definitely be a few to look definitely bring into your team, I would say. So look, that's a wrap up. If I missed someone, because I may have, I didn't give you too many options there, but if you look through North Melbourne's list and you see a few options, definitely let me know. Give the video a like, that's for sure, and no doubt subscribe to the channel if you're a SuperCoach lover like myself, because it's coming up pretty quickly as is footy season, which is exciting. So give the channel a subscribe, because there'll be heaps more SuperCoach content coming your way, and let us know your thoughts on how the previews are coming along. Catch you soon, guys.